The arrival of the Oregon Trunk Railroad in 1911 changed everything for Central Oregon. For the first time, rail lines could carry massive loads of pine timber out of the forest and to the sawmills. By 1916, two huge mills, Shevlin-Hixon on the west side of the Deschutes River and Brooks-Scanlon on the east, were running full steam, fed by railroads that stretched deep into the pine country. Shevlin-Hixon didn't just hire loggers. They built entire portable towns that moved with the timber. The company advertised for families by providing schools for the kids, a cookhouse, barber shop, bathhouse, and a post office. These weren't just camps. They were self-contained communities with family units that provided street names and tiny numbered houses. Neighbors lived close. Kids grew up playing outside together, like any other neighborhood, and the sense of community within these camps grew strong. The largest and longest-lasting of these was the LaPine camp, at its peak housing a community of about 600 people, running from 1932 to 1942. Summit Camp and Shemult Camp came after, serving as home base when the timber stands shifted south. These places were tough, but they provided a lot to the struggling families they housed, the local economy, and the loggers who worked for them, which meant everything during the Great Depression. My great-grandfather, Hood Henderson, was born in 1905 in Harlan, Oregon. By the time he was in his 20s, the Depression had hit hard. Jobs were scarce everywhere, mills were cutting shifts, and many men had to travel wherever they could just to find work. Hood made the decision to leave what was familiar and head east to the pine forests of Central Oregon, where Shevlin-Hixon was still hiring. In 1934, he married my great-grandmother, Ione Hall, in Bend, and together they settled into one of the family houses in a Shevlin camp, most likely LaPine. Their house even had its own street number and name, just like a small town. They lived in these camps for 8 to 10 years, raising their first two sons within these cramped quarters. Life in the camp wasn't easy. Wood stoves for heat, hand pumps for water, outhouses in winter. But it meant steady work, steady pay, as well as a community that grew to feel like family and had your back during hard times. Hood wasn't a famous man, just one of thousands of loggers who got up before dawn, worked hard in dangerous conditions, and came home tired but proud to put food on the table. He was able to provide for his growing family enough to make it out of this decade. Like so many others, he traveled where the work was and helped keep Oregon's economy going through some of the hardest years in our nation's history. One of my favorite photos from this album shows Hood standing proudly with a massive buck. Coming from Harlan, he had always hunted black-tailed deer, so this big eastern Oregon muley must have been one of the highlights of his life. You can even see the portable logging camp behind him in the picture, tying the memory to this exact chapter of his story. When I look through these photos, I think not just of my own family, but of the many families who lived the same way, moving with the camps, raising children in small houses, out in wildness, and finding joy where they could with one another. Hood may have been just one logger among many, but to us, he represents all those men and women who built lives in the ponderosa pine forests. His story is one of perseverance, love, and true grit, a story that shaped my family, and in its own way, helped shape Oregon.